routine, usually when it's warm out, I'll go walk pastures for an hour and cut cedar trees, the little ones
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
with roast trimmers.
That,
I do an hour at a time.
good for
I
you.
cut 200 or 300 of those little boogers in an hour.
Well, you're humping.
And, well, some places they're quicker than others, but we find in the pastures, if you do that about every 3 to 5 years, you just rotate, you stay ahead of them.
Absolutely.
We hate mass spraying.
Well, seeing that the clock has struck 7, I'm going to call the meeting to order and have a roll call.
Grant. Grolichek.
Here.
Kirschenman. Hanson. Bixler. Did you hear me? Tom.
Tom, you got your mic on?
Is he online?
Yeah.
Loest.
Yes.
Healy.
Here.
Tacky. Cruz.
Present. Well, we'll recognize a quorum and make sure everybody's got their mics on. David? Okay, we got an agenda here with the packet. Is there any items or adjustments to the agenda? Anyone proposes?
Move approval of the agenda.
I have a motion. Have a motion to approve the agenda. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, the last meeting minutes were also part of your packet you received. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to the previous meeting minutes?
No.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Approve the minutes as presented?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Moving on, is there any conflicts of interest with the items on the agenda for tonight? Any member?
And at the last meeting, we did have Mr. Healy recuse himself from the JHGAS Farms LLC.
Okay.
So that should continue for this discussion as well.
Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest?
I'd like to ask them some questions, I guess, and I don't know if now is the proper time or not. We can wait till the Gunnarson application comes out. However you want to handle it.
Okay,
How many members had prior discussions with Mr. Gunnarson before the last meeting and or this meeting concerning the application?
Yes, and my discussions are all in the packet, so they are disclosed and that is acceptable.
What do you mean acceptable?
That how we have handled it at the commission level, because there are times when we have conditional use permit hearings and such. And as long as our information is disclosed to the other members of the board, it's not considered a conflict.
Okay, I didn't see any discussion. I think I seen an email from Mr. Gunnarson to you.
And that was our discussion. Everything was from our discussion we had on the phone was put in the email.
Okay. Nobody else has had any discussion with Mr. Gunnarson concerning the permits?
I guess I did. I talked to Gunderson. He asked me and I told him to call Sherry and call the drainage board. He asked me what I should do. You should do. And I forwarded and it said, go ahead and you'd have to talk to zoning board. Other than started yet. You or anything like that. I guess I didn't tell him what he should do or shouldn't do. I just told him to go ahead and talk to the zoning board and Sherry Lewis. I guess that's a good question. Where is it communication between neighbors? Because you guys are neighbors too, and me and you are neighbors, you know. But
Yeah,
if you're giving guidance or anything else, I guess, you know, my guidance was to tell John to go ahead and talk to the drainage board. And I've had many people have called me in the past and asked questions, and I've always refer them back to the drainage board or to the zoning board.
yeah, the concern would be any kind of biased opinion. that
Yeah,
possibly
yeah,
was.
it could be. Yeah, I could see that.
So nobody feels like they need to recuse themselves. Probably, prior opinions were formed.
Anyone else?
No, John, I visit periodically, whether it's this or that, I told him, it's gotta come here. You know, it's gotta come before us.
Well, I'm getting feedback from the community and that it looks like a good old boy committee is what's starting to happen here.
Would you like me to recuse myself from it as well?
Well, that's your call, Sherry. I guess you were kind of in the middle of it all.
And I can certainly step back if the Drainage Commission feels I need to step back, happy to do it.
I'm not requesting or requiring, just inquiring at this point.
So I will recuse myself from voting on that. And it's just the one that has to do with
with
Mr. Gunderson,
Johnson, that's correct.
not the neighbor.
Correct.
Happy to do it.
Okay.
So neither you nor I can participate in that,
In the vote.
in the discussion either.
Why not the discussion?
Because how we view it at the county commission level is if there is a conflict, we can't participate in the discussion either.
Yeah,
So
last
I will
meeting-
not vote and I will not discuss.
Last meeting we did discuss, yeah.
And that's not how we handle it at the county commission level. So happy to do it. So I will not participate in that one. So there's no issue with conflict.
Okay, well, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, I guess, on my part, and coming from the community in the county, the questions were asked of me that I said I would find out, and so without being part of the discussion, it's gonna be hard to
Now,
convey some of this information back.
Healy, going back to that, I know in the past I have recused myself for projects and stuff and neighbor projects that tie to me. And then I have sat in the crowd and asked questions or clarified what was going on, or if there was an easement and things like that. I guess I don't see any problem acute or stepping down and vote. And that I was over the phone listening to it last month, excuse me. About I didn't catch everything, but he asked you to step down as a person because you had previous conflicts.
Well, he said it was part of the application, I mean, we have.
Oh, okay.
so
Okay,
many-
I thought there was some other,
No, it's-
I understood there was
it's
some
part
law.
of the application, so.
okay, yeah. We've all talked to John because we were on the board with him before, but I think if you refuse and oppose or for or whatever and put your input in, if you're part of the act of the thing, I think you could do it on the opposite side.
Yeah, the objective is to get the facts out. and
Yeah, then
this
that-
is a
yeah, yeah,
committee
that's
for
what we're
evidence
here
of
for.
fact.
Yeah,
why
that's what we're here for, is
Right.
to make
right,
sure we're doing it right.
Right.
And I guess I don't know what the law says either way, but I know we have in the past recused ourselves, stepped on to the other side
Yeah.
and
I
asked
have
questions. Yeah.
No problem with that whatsoever.
Okay. And I should ask, do you mind I talked, or do you have a problem with me staying on, or I guess
I guess is something you're gonna have to.
I
have
just,
to
we
answer
never really,
yourself on how
we
much-
never really talked about the application, besides he said what he should do. I said, you gotta go to zoning board.
Mhm.
And and stuff. So I guess telling one way or another, I never, tell you the truth, I don't even know where this land exactly is. I know where vicinity is, but in the map, I couldn't drive to it today. I should say that.
Well, like you say, there's some confusion even. in
Yeah, no, I
county.
want to be clear
It'd
too.
just be nice to get
I
all the facts and.
Yeah, I would like to see all the facts.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been that way.
Yeah, I agree.
So as a board, do we need to decide on the fact that if we're gonna recuse ourselves and allow us to step down into the public as a yay or nay for whichever side you wanna be on?
Yeah.
Do we all need to come to agreement on that? Because that's not what the commission does. When they recuse themselves, they're out of the whole gambit.
See, I don't know. I know in the past, we have recused ourselves, because I've done it. I know a few other board member has, especially when you're bringing your own project up or a project that you're tied to. Because if you're bringing your own project up, you got to step from the board and do it. For example, the Heine's and mine last year, 2 years ago, I stepped down. Heine's did theirs. I spoke on their behalf and they spoke on my behalf, and we both talked back and forth. That's where I'm getting at.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Just the information that would.
the information, yeah, it was just,
I have no problem with that.
I guess I don't either.
Yeah, there's a difference in my mind, though, between a project sponsor
Yeah.
and a conflict of interest. And I think it's, and I'm, again, I don't have the conflict of interest understanding in front of me from the county, but I do think as our county commission rep, we need to be consistent, I feel, with the process that the Yankton County Commission uses regarding recusing oneself from a conflict of interest on an issue. And so I'd like to hear that again. What is that in practice?
I guess the stance we took was that if the commissioner themselves felt they had a conflict, they disclosed it. And if they would like to recuse themselves, they can, they do. And normally we do. There have been times where it was brought up, a commissioner had a conflict. They didn't feel it was, but the rest of the board felt it was. So they recused themselves at that point as well. And normally when we recuse, we don't discuss. We're done, and oftentimes we will leave the room if it's going to be something that's controversial.
So is there any, just for our edification here, is there anything that defines what a conflict of interest is? In my mind, you serve to gain or lose a particular personal effect related to the action.
So it can be financial or non-financial. And Gary, you probably don't know the statute that they always go back to. It's actually pretty vague statute. They leave it on either the commissioner or the commission to interpret the specific, if you will. And I'm trying to think of an example that we've used of recently. Well, one where I felt comfortable recusing myself from the vote was the buffer strips and adding a new stream to the buffer strip eligibility. The stream goes across my land.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a perception I could have a conflict of interest there.
Absolutely.
So I recuse myself
It
even though.
states it right on the agenda that it's 6-1-17.
Okay. So is that on the county commission agenda? Oh, okay. 6-1-7-2.
Wasn't that the letter you sent out there?
Yeah, there was some stuff that was sent out earlier. It was just after the last meeting, 6-1. What was that again? 6-1-17. I don't have one in here. There's an 18.
Can you guys hear me yet?
There we go. So the title of it is Official Prohibited from Discussing or Voting on Issue if Conflict of Interest exists. No county, municipal, or school official may participate in discussing or vote on any issue in which the official has a conflict. Each official shall decide if any potential conflict of interest requires such official to be disqualified from participating in discussion or voting. However, no such official may participate in discussing or vote on an issue if the following circumstances apply. The official has a direct pecuniary interest in the matter. At least 2/3 of the governing body votes that an official has an identifiable conflict of interest that should prohibit such official from voting. If an official with a direct pecuniary interest participates in discussion or votes on a matter before the governing board, the legal sole remedy is to invalidate the official's vote. So there's your guidance there.
Well, it talks about vote, but
And-
didn't necessarily see discussion in there. That's,
It
I
did
think
say
that's where the question is here.
It
Can
did
we
say
discuss-
discussion.
It
does
said
say
discussion and vote.
Discuss and vote.
Yep, and so
Okay, well then.
I am happy to recuse myself.
You're actually part of the application, though, I guess. You know, you had some direct involvement. You gave Mr. Gunnison the approval. I think you should be part of the discussion.
Well, I'll certainly answer questions, but I cannot ask questions. I cannot actively
yeah.
participate.
Okay,
So if you
understandable.
view me as a witness, you can call me as a witness.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
So is it my understanding that for the 7:15 agenda item, Sherry and David will recuse themselves? And we will still have a quorum. Okay,
I'd like to be part of the
that's what I want to make sure.
discussion from the other side. From the audience, from the public.
Are you a project sponsor?
Somehow or another, I'm in the project, I guess, yes.
All right. Any other conflicts of interest? Okay, moving on to the, on the agenda here is listed as the 7:05 PM issue. Gerald Eilers, applicant is requesting a drainage permit to install drain tile which outlets in a culvert at the property legally described as the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter, except lot H1 and the south 1/2 northeast 1/4 of section 4, township 95 north, range 56 west, herein after referred to as Central Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota. This one has been in front of us several times in the past. I'm trying to figure out a way to maybe tie this down. It's also related to the 710 project, Greg Schmidt. It's a related project. If it's concurred to by the Drainage Commission, I'd like to handle these two simultaneously and have first Gerald or Chad come up and tell us just briefly again, summarize the project and what's changed since the last time you were here. And then Greg, if you have anything else to add at that time as well, but maybe we can get at least the information. Everyone should be here in support of and anyone speaking against this project by now because they were slated on the agenda for 05 and 10 after. Is that okay with the Drainage Commission?
Casey, I think we should just, I know they're both tied together, but I'd like to just vote for each application separately.
Yes, we'll vote them separately.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
I
But-
just wanted to clarify
Right.
that way they're. clean.
Yep. But if we'll have the discussion,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, we can.
and
put them
then
together.
have two different motions to support
Yes,
the permits, yes.
Sure.
Okay. We'll open the floor to comment, project proponents first, support. Chad or Gerald? And again, having, just refresh us on where you're at and what, I think this is maybe the fourth time you've been here?
The fourth time, correct. Chad Eilers, 43724. Nothing has changed in the past year. The drain tiles, same design, same everything, same outlet, same everything. The only thing is we never had the GFP sign the easement or whatever you want to call it. Well, we finally did that over the last couple months. So we hopefully it passes this time. So we got all the paperwork done. You asked for it, we got it done. So we done our part.
Does anyone have any questions for Chad?
What was the change of heart by the GFP?
I guess we were in a different direction and we were told to talk to higher people. Well, the last meeting was what, September or October? And Tom over here said, you need to go to the top of the very top. Well, we found some connections and went actually to the head guy in Pier. And we got other people involved and they actually came down and looked at it finally and signed off.
That's my only question.
Any other, go ahead. Any other questions? That's a good one.
I guess it all depends on who you know or find out who you know.
Go to the top.
That's right. That's what Tom said.
Any other questions?
One quick question.
Sure.
When you tile into the ditch there, are you gonna rock it and all that stuff or? figure out-
We do not, Dad actually went out to talk to the head guy out at the state.
Yeah.
And we cannot go in the ditch. It has to be right at the fence line.
Okay.
And as far as they said, we don't have to rock, they put an oversized culvert in there when they redone 46.
Okay.
And no, we don't have to rock it or nothing.
It's rocked on the outflow
It is.
Yeah,
of the
Okay.
culvert.
Okay, that, right.
yeah, on the south side of the road, it's rock.
Yeah. That answers the question. There's rock there. Yeah.
So will that run all the way down through the Jim River there then?
Yes. Yes, it will.
There's plenty of grade there, I take it.
Oh, God, yeah. Casey was out after that last meeting and he couldn't believe that nobody would sign off because it's like a, 40, 50 foot drop off right at the highway or the right of way. So yeah, there's plenty of grade.
Yeah, there's a lot of grade.
Good job.
So any other questions here for Chad before we bring Greg up? And then we'll turn it over to any opposed. So do
Casey.
you have any, go.
Should we just vote on Chad's right now?
Well, we need to offer the opportunity for
Okay. Oh,
anybody
yeah,
from the
exactly.
public to come up if they're opposed to the project.
Okay.
So Chad, I'll have you
Thank you.
take a seat. Anyone here that's opposed to this project? Sounds like we're going to handle them individually here. Anyone opposed? John?
Not opposed. God bless Gene Tom.
Thank you. Seeing no other opposition, we'll close the comment period here on the Gerald Eiler application. And as Frank said, have we gone through the finding of fact on this, or do we need to read the finding of fact like we used to, or? No. Okay. Is there any discussion amongst the board?
I didn't see an easement from the State Department. the Highway
It's-
Department. Did I miss it? Okay, great.
It's, yeah.
Because usually they want something.
Oh, yeah, it's,
Say that you're draining into their ditch.
yeah, they've got it signed by Emmett
Okay,
Keiser,
never mind. I-
Waiver
I
for
skipped over it. I skipped over it.
signed on the 17th of December.
Okay, great.
That was no easy task. Any other discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the Yankton County permit for Gerald Eilers?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Doesn't matter. There you go.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Let's move right then into the Greg Schmidt 710 agenda item. Greg, applicant is requesting a drainage permit to install drain tile which outlets in a culvert at the property legally described as the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter, excluding lot H1, and the east half of the northwest quarter, excluding lot H1, section 4, township 95 north, range 56 west. Hereinafter referred to as Central Township, County of Yankton, state of South Dakota. And this project has also come as a kind of a joint project, or not a joint project, but it's using the same outlet and was held up because of the same issue, and has the waiver for performing drainage work. And we also have received a affidavit of mailing for a Yankton County drainage ordinance, some paperwork that needed to be completed, and Bill handed that to us tonight here. So if you want to come up and share anything other than what you've heard, if not, it's fine too. Okay. Anyone here, anyone else want to speak to the project? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the floor to public comment on the Schmidt request for permit, drainage permit. Is there any discussion amongst the Drainage Commission? Any discussion?
We had finding the facts before, didn't we?
Yeah, it was all contingent upon this Game Fish and Parks
Right.
easement to cross into the blue line. It was a blue line issue. There's just a little chunk from the highway to the start of the blue line in the Game Fish and Parks property there. So hearing no discussion, do I have a motion to approve the Greg Schmidt drainage permit?
Hanson, so approved.
Hanson, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Loest, second. Any further discussion?
Only discussion is, Chad, thanks for keep fighting to get the project done
Well,
and working forward.
you remember the meeting you guys were gonna think about dissolving the drainage board? I was so mad at you guys. I got enough of you guys. But if it wasn't for this guy back here, that's the main reason we're here tonight, because of that guy back here.
Well, it's never easy. And some of these things are precedent setting. And yeah, thanks for your consistent and diligent efforts on that, Chad. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking with us.
So everyone knows, Tom as well.
Okay. That may present a problem for me on this next issue, if we have two recusals.
Four. Can we call them and bring them in as a call-in? We've done that before.
Yep, I don't think I've got his number.
Casey, you still have a forum for the meeting. You still have a majority of the vote.
You're right. Thank you, John. That is correct. We will have a quorum for the meeting. So moving on to the 7:15, we didn't catch up much yet, but We are on to the JHGAS Farms LLC. Applicant is requesting a modification of drainage permit to move newly installed tile from the northeast one quarter of section 16, Township 95 North, Range 55 West to the southwest one quarter of section 10, T95 North, Range 55 West, herein referred to as Walshtown Township, County of Yankton, State of South Dakota. And I'll request that Sherry Loest and David Healy recuse themselves from this agenda item. Who is the project proponent here that would like to come up and speak to this?
Oh, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, John.
Let me get organized for a minute.
Name
I'll
for
sound
the
a lot
record?
better.
Your name for the record?
My name is John Gunderson, Irene, South Dakota, and I'm, I guess, the project manager for this. The other people here, Casey, have gone through a lot of detail. I'm going to shorten it up. You've got the packet.
Yep.
The Reader's Digest version is that we received a valid permit to drain in August of 2020. At the time of construction, we realized an opportunity to modify our plan. We did not change the size of the outlet. And as you know, I've been a strong proponent to getting these things into waterways and not down ditches. And that's what we did. This way we don't have erosion issues. There's no power line issues we had to fight with, no road issues we had to fight with. Again, we got the permit in August of 2020. We did a change notification to the county before we moved the outlet. And there were questions raised after we put the tile in. We did notify the county before construction. We included a map. There were questions about whether we were in the blue line, and the question becomes, I know that this board depends on the blue line map, but also, we also depend on something called a natural water course. And that's what we're depending on. This is not a situation where we are running water where there is no easement and there is no agreement between the subservient landowner. This is a situation, Linksteads are here. This creek is not the 50-foot deep at Eilers, it's only 25 foot deep. But the blue line is still 200 yards further down the creek. We have a vested drainage right. We recorded it at the county, NRCS. We have no wetland inventory on this property. The ordinance in section 3.03 allows for moving an outlet. We're well within the 10% rule of the distance of moving that outlet from where we intended to where it actually is. Now, section 305, the administrator shall have the authority to grant or deny a drainage permit and also to modify. And we know that in the past, these modifications have been granted. I don't have a list of them, but we all know it's happened. 305.2, which outlets directly into a permanent or intermittent stream not listed above, which is the blue line, which is in 305.1. And if no abutting landowner files a written objection within 10 days. Mr. Vetter, I need you for a moment. Would you stand up, please? Have there been any written objections to our permit?
There have been none.
Okay. We have sent notices out twice. We sent them out for the December meeting and we sent them out for this meeting. We did not send them out for the January one. Under the old rules, if you sent the notice out and no one objection, you didn't have to send it out again. But we were asked at this last meeting to send out notices a second time. Happy to do it. We were also asked to have Washtown Township sign a new township road agreement. Again, no problem, happy to do it. They were happy to do it. The township board chairman, Larry Cease, is also the downstream one of the downstream landowners. I've spoken to Terry Schramm and Jerry Keeley, who are also the downstream landowners. They have no problem. Linksteads are on board. We've called, we've written. I made an assumption based on my reading of the drainage ordinance that we could change that outlet location based on 305 and 305.2. Based on my experience, as you know, on the board. We did notification before we installed the tile. We made no attempt to hide or conceal this project. Matter of fact, kitty corner from our quarter in this section is David Healy's farm shop. He watched us put all this tile in. He knows what we were doing. We've made every attempt to comply and offer information. No one who is affected by this is objecting. No one objected in writing. We started putting this tile in at the end of November, 1st of December. We were fighting Mother Nature's clock. Excuse me. We had semi-loads of tile in the field. And we changed things. We had 110 days from the time we applied to the permit till the time we started putting tile in the ground. We had no complaints. As an additional, okay, we got a problem, let's do this right. We put a valve on the end of that pipe and we closed it. So there is no benefit to that tile running all winter long. The tile has been closed. So we ask that you ratify this modification. And if you have any questions, please feel free.
Any questions from the Drainage Commission to John? JHGIS Farms or Limited, who's the applicant
There's
here?
a lot of paper there.
JHGIS Farm, sorry.
I feel sorry for the trees that had to die for this.
Yeah, John.
It's recycled paper.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll start having cedar tree paper.
Any questions for John?
John, because I wasn't here last time. I want to clarify the outlet, you were gonna go down the ditch. The proposed project that you had the permit for, right?
Correct.
Now you stay in
If you see the green line on
the green
map,
line
yeah,
there,
yep.
but what I'm trying to get to is, looks like to me, now you stayed in their natural waterfall or water, where it was supposed to go, into the natural
Correct.
water. You want around the dam, or did you outlet above the dam or below the dam?
We're currently outletting above the dam.
So it's staying on your property?
It's staying on my property, but it is not the blue line yet. That's the issue. That's the problem. I agree it's a problem. I don't,
But
following the
but
water.
you're putting it in a holding area. Again, I know the blue line's downstream, the slopes there. I can
Right.
see it, we've talked about it, but I just want to clarify. But the ditch was not the blue line either. So the ditch would have took off much further
Okay,
to get to the blue line?
backing up 35 years ago, the owner of the subservient landowner 35 years ago, when we started seriously draining this, objected to us putting surface drainage in. And so on our quarter, which is the southwest of section 10, which gets water from the southeast of 10 and from the northeast of 10, there's about most of 2/4 of land, the surface drainage ends up down on my place. I'm the New Orleans of this section. And so we took off about 60 acres of water off our quarter and ran it, dug the ditch down, deepened the ditch and ran it so we could run surface water out that way.
So you got a vested ditch, kinda,
Right. We have vested ditch. This,
kinda like the Sternhagen one was.
this is prior to 85.
Yeah.
And so what we were doing essentially was doing the same thing, was taking water off of our quarter, running it around the subservient and going right down the ditch with it. Now, the problem with going down the ditch is there's a 3-phase power line buried in there. There's a driveway. And when it drops down over the hill, and I believe some of those pictures are in the packet, it drops over a big hill. And I've already got an erosion problem there just from surface drainage.
You're talking down this.
Right, yeah,
West.
yep, south, where your finger is.
Yeah, I know where my finger. So north, that'd be on the west side of the ditch.
Yeah.
South.
Yep. And there's a nasty ditch there, and it's already eroding, and I'm already hauling rock to try and stop it from cutting out. Plus, there's a culvert. You have the road ditch meets a 4-foot culvert, and we've had a hard time holding that culvert in, and I'm hauling rock in to try and save that culvert. So we had a chance to move it and have it where instead of running down the ditch, we run it through 2 existing culverts.
You're running it into a dam, then going through 2 existing culverts into a next
Cul-
dam.
Culvert, dam, culvert. So it's
To get
It's
to a
cleaner.
blue line?
when it gets to the dam has the blue line in it. This is, the blue line map is great, except it's a construction of man and it's not perfect. And this is one of the places where it's just wrong. But, where the higher of the 2 culverts is already rocked. It's had rock, it's had all sorts of stuff put in it. It can handle plenty of water. And it has to, because that 4-foot culvert, about every 3 or 4 years, has water going over the top of it. And what we're hoping is we get this tile in and get some carrying capacity on that ground. We can lessen the amount of water that's going to be going over the road and keep it down to where it's going through the culvert. We'll change that flow pattern. At least that's my hope.
The sponge effect,
Yeah, exactly.
creating your sponge out in the field.
Yep. Now, there's a yield map. Casey's got it up there. That's the yield map off the combine. And I mean, those red areas, if we can get those where they've got some holding capacity, the problem with this ground up there is that there's nothing underneath it except clay that you can make pot out of. And once that soil profile fills up, there's no place for that water to go. Now, there are sand channels in there, but still they're shallow. This is still lake bed ground. But if we can get some of that stuff drained out, get some of those wet spots drained out, pretty good dirt. And, we're working on getting this thing cleaned up. We've got this quarter, the southeast needs to be done. The northwest needs to be done. I've got another quarter at home that needs a little more loving. But, I can't do it all in 1 year. But again, we got a permit, we did a modification. I got a verbal commitment that it was okay. My mistake, I admit, is I didn't get it in writing
And that verbal, okay was from?
from Sherry. And Gary was informed, you know,
So, okay, thank you.
but I didn't, again, my mistake was I didn't get it in writing.
Any other questions for John?
Dan, you had some insights last time. Go ahead.
I'll reserve my comment.
What's the distance from the outflow to the blue line, John? Refresh my memory.
Very far across the road into my dam.
So-
Blue line's in there, across the road.
So Larry, I guess I want to ask questions for Larry.
Yeah, we can bring him up to the mic
Couple-
next. I was just
Yeah,
wondering if you had,
That's what my question is. The difference between this one and Eilers is that we're draining into the dam. Dam drains naturally through the ditch, through the big culvert, or what were the culverts, 24s or 36s?
48.
48s. Then goes into Larry's ground, which he has an easement for, because that's the problem we had with Eilers. He couldn't get the easement from the Game Fisher
Fisher
Park.
Parks.
And so he's got the easement for the flow of the water to get to Larry. Is that a dam in Larry's then? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, that's why I was assuming, but I wanted to be clarified here on the
What
bottom.
picture are you looking at there, Frank?
I got a picture of this one here that was in my packet. I know, I got a spread here.
Well, I got 4.5 inches of paper here. I can't see
Well,
that.
that, and, you know, this one just shows the dam below it, so this is why I'm asking the question. So between, the difference between this and Eilers is John's got the easement from the township and Larry's to get there. And what I'm thinking is, how many have we done this in the past? And I was thinking Sterling was one of them that we drained in the ditch to get to the blue line for over a mile, but that was already a vested drainage, which kind of ties to this, but not really. Other ones in the past, I was thinking is, last year, I think Kevin Hunoff had one that he drained to a ravine, but wasn't a blue line, but he had the easement to get to the blue line. If I remember correctly.
That went under the highway.
What's that?
That went under the highway.
Kevin Hunoff? I thought that was,
The Hunoff one went to the east under.
no, that was Ed Hunoff. I'm talking about Kevin and Mark Hunoff. Kevin did one that Chris Nelson did that was up there by Bernie Hunoff's place.
Yeah, it kind of went through
Over that Ryan place.
the wrong place.
Right, but he had all the easements to get there, but, you know, and I know there's a few others. But the difference between that and Eilers is that he's got the easements.
Yeah.
To clarify,
That is a difference.
that is a difference, right? To my mind, I want to be, clarify my train of thoughts here.
I got it. Yeah, I had, must have thumbed it through with something else the time before.
They all look alike after a while.
So any other questions for John?
Basically, he's got everything he needs. The only reason he's in front of us because he did some work without getting a permit first.
And that's a problem. We like to give spankings for that.
I didn't,
I said, basically, you did everything you're supposed to, except get the permit first. That's why
except
you're
get it, I got it verbally and not in writing.
He had a permit for the project, but he changed the project.
I changed the outlet. I didn't get the permission in writing. And for that, I guilty and throw myself on the mercy of the court.
So can I ask a question about that, John? Why did you go to Sherry instead of to Gary? the administrator?
Because that question was asked last time you
I'm
were
sorry,
here.
sorry.
But because of several instances of litigation, I had to go through the state's attorney's office, and he referred me to Sherry. And just in terms of clarification, Healy's were part of at least two of those lawsuits.
Okay.
And so we went through the state's attorney because he's ultimately the enforcement officer.
Any other questions for John? Thanks, John. Anyone else here is a proponent for this project, for this JH Gas Farms permit request? Anyone here to speak on behalf of and support of? Okay, before I turn it over to any opponents to this, Gary, will you come to the mic and explain to me the administrative process here that's gone on with this permit?
So
And
basically,
where any concerns lie from your perspective, having the office you have?
so basically, as was discussed, the original permit was got, and then
What was that? I'm
In
sorry. Was that
August.
an administrative permit?
that was an
Okay.
administrative permit in August. In November, we started getting emails through Rob and Sherry that there was a modification that was requested. And like was stated, it seemed like a pretty minor modification. But once the tile was starting to be constructed, there was a question raised about why it was happening, where it was happening, and it was decided then that we would bring it to the board since there was some questions raised on the project.
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah,
The reason you permitted it is because it was vested, because there was no blue line to it. Is that correct?
correct. And the fact that my interpretation was that it was on his own property, that it's allowed per, I don't have the number in front of me.
Yeah,
but-
well, it's vested, so you,
Right,
so that's a reason he got the
Exactly.
permit ahead of time.
When you say vested, you mean there's a vested drainage?
There was a vested drainage,
Correct.
according to what John just said and what Gary said. And is that in our paperwork, anybody? This book? I hate to ask that question, but the vested part, is that in here?
You don't want another tree.
Okay. Well,
But that has been filed with the county.
okay, so that can be clarified at the county,
Yes.
that it was vested.
Thank you. Sure, you want to? And since you're recused from this process,
Yep.
you want to state on what behalf you're speaking to the.
All I'm doing is reading from your packet for the public record.
Okay.
Because it's a big packet.
Yes, it is.
It was stated that I gave the verbal okay. So the email that I sent back to Mr. Gunderson after I got a look at the map, he sent where the tile was going. And these are my words. After looking at your map closer and matching it with the notes I took, I want to clarify one thing. Does your tile outlet directly discharge into the blue line? From our conversation, I thought you were moving your outlet onto the Linkstead property, so its outlet was directly into the blue line. From your drawing, it looks like your outlet is on your property, drains through the ditch and over the Linkstead land. If that's the case, then it does require Drainage Commission approval in that it does not outlet into a permanent or intermittent stream. So I just wanted to clarify that was part of the conversation, and that was the written documentation that was recorded from it.
Thank you.
John's got a question.
I hate to say it this way. That's what she said. I agree. That's what she said. And that email came in, I think, on the 6th of December. And we started putting tile in on the 4th. And I thought from our conversations on the 30th of November that we were okay. And that's why we're here, and that's why the valve is closed. Because we're not trying to hide anything, we're not trying to do anything shady. I'm not trying to run water on somebody without an easement. I'm not trying to do it without permission. We've tried to dot every I and cross every T. The only problem we got into was it's the 1st of December and it's getting cold and we had the tile in the field. And that's our mistake. And that's why we're here. So
Thanks,
I do
John.
not dispute what Sherry said. I understand what she said. I understand why she said it, and that's why we're here.
Okay, having concluded the comments in support of this project, is there anyone here opposed to the project that would like to speak? You can
I just think I have a question on the notifications last meeting.
come up to the mic and as you're recused from this meeting, please, David, speak on what behalf you're asking these questions. You are not asking them as part of the commission.
Yeah,
That's correct. That is correct. I'm not part of the committee. I need some clarifications on notifications. Last meeting, supposedly notifications were not sent out before the tile project started. Now tonight, I understood them to say that notifications were sent out before the tile project started. So which one is it? I didn't see any notifications go out before the tile project started. Is there any in the packet? I didn't see any.
give me a minute.
Yeah, give me
Oh, so David, you're saying,
I'm saying
I
the
no,
proper
I
notification.
want to be
Yeah.
clarified. You're
Yeah.
saying when he filed this first one that was supposed to go in the vested, he did not send
was-
notification.
Correct.
Okay.
Just want to get that
Yep,
clarified.
no, I am. Gary, can you?
Yeah, I'd ask our administrator.
Yeah.
And that is one of the questions that we want to clear up even when we start talking about the ordinance tonight, because there's a lot of questions, and this ain't the first time this has happened, about whether or not people have been sending out notifications. I'm a proponent, and in the past, we did it ourselves versus this process of trying, of people signing affidavits saying that letters are sent, and then people accuse later that they didn't get it. What I've did in the past is we did it all in-house. We did it by certified mail. And I always have record of who signed off on it. People forget, somebody signs for them. Sometimes things are put in different places. And that's one of the clarifications that I want to have changed possibly tonight, is that maybe we need to start moving this in-house. Then we'll make sure that this process is always the same and always done.
Gary, I got a quick question. Do we do it for planning and zoning?
We don't currently, and I've suggested that in the past for planning and zoning too, because recently especially, we've had more people say that even though the affidavits are signed, that they didn't get no letter. And so I think we need to change it across the county.
So in your estimation, was there notification sent out prior to the original permit?
There was discussion that there was going to be noticing sent out. I don't believe we have the affidavit in the packet though.
Any other questions for Gary? Yeah, John, I'll ask you to come back up and respond, please. Because I believe I also heard you say that this is the second time you sent out notification.
Yep. We did not send out notifications at the time that the permit was issued because it was an administrative permit. We sent out notifications at December, before the December meeting, but we didn't get a notarized affidavit of service. We just sent an email saying that we had sent notifications out at the end of December. And we included Mr. Healy in both the December notifications and the one at the end of January. Even though he is more than a half mile upstream from where the outlet is.
But he has adjoining land.
He
right?
has adjoining land. The reason, and again, of these 4 quarters in this section, essentially 3 1/4 of them drain down through our ground. Well, actually, all 4 of them drain down through our ground for the most part. Mr. Healy has extensively tiled his quarter, which is the northeast quarter of that section. And that water doesn't come to the southwest, it goes off to the northwest. So if, and again, those of you that have been on the board with me know that if somebody had been upstream and would have benefited from tiling in this, it has been my contention that if you're going to do it, get a hold of those people if they've got a chance to get involved in it. In this case, I knew Mr. Healy's water went the other way. His tile, because of a lawsuit that we had and ran through the board, runs in a tile that runs underneath me. Fine. I have no problem with that. He put as much tile as he wanted to on it. You know, that's his business. I don't really care what he does. Mr. Linkstead wants to drain. Great. You know, let's put that tile in. I've got no problem with that. I'm the subservient landowner on these, in this section. That's the way my folks, when they bought the ground, that's the way it is. My grandfather bought the other quarter. That's the way it is. It's not worth fighting over. The people downstream understand this. Shrams, Kiwis, and Ceases all have put in a lot of tile. They understand the importance of doing it right. That's what we've tried to do. Again, there's been no attempt to hide anything. It's just and Dan was right. We should have sent out a notice and gotten an affidavit of service. He's right. We did it cheerfully. We went into Mr. Conklin and he handed me the list and I handed in the affidavit of service because I'd already sent it. Right? Yeah, no problem. Went back to the township board and redid the permission. We had permission in 2013 or 2014, but we did it again. We did it in 2020. And so we did it again in 2021. No problem.
Okay.
We're not trying to hide anything here.
Thank you, John. Any other questions? Anyone else here opposed to the project? That being the JHGAS Farms LLC application requesting a modification of the administrative drainage permit. And the modification is to move the outlet. That's my understanding. Hearing none, I'll close the floor to public comment on this issue and move to discussion amongst the Drainage Commission.
Casey, my question was, so what, thinking back to last meeting, the other chicken ass, he had a permit in 14, is that correct? And he didn't move on this project since 14. Then he got another permit that was a administrative permit in 20, in August, I think he said. So I know when you get a permit, right now there is no deadlines according to our ordinance, correct?
Year and a half.
Is it a year and a half? Okay, so that's the reason he came back.
You must start construction.
Must start construction. Yeah, but there is no ending date, correct? Yeah, okay.
Because
Okay,
you
that's why he came back in August and did that.
might have to add, to get drainage down, we've had to do that on some of mine. Got in and got one pipe or two pipes.
Right.
Then as it's dried down, then we can get in and get two more.
Well, we've done it, we all done it
Yeah,
before where a project might take 2, 3 years, 4 years to do because you only do so much in the fall when after harvest, you can only get so much done. So I just want to clarify, he had a permit in 14, but he did not start the project. That's the reason he went back and did it in August.
Of 20.
You put tile in at 14.
Oh, there was tile in at 14.
Yeah. Leaston and us worked together in 14 and drained X number of acres
On this section?
on this section. And so what the ordinance, as my understanding says, when you're adding another outlet, you need to get another permit.
new
Rather than
construction.
Try and run extra into the existing tile, we came in to get another permit.
So your first permit didn't have this project though then?
Correct.
So that's the reason you went ahead. So basically the August,
The 14, the
14 has
doesn't-
no effect to this
doesn't
thing.
matter.
Doesn't matter then. Okay. That's why I was trying to get clarified.
Any other discussion?
Well, your blue lines, that was brought up. That's not a gospel map, because I can take you to section 3 up at Turkey Valley, and it's got a nice, beautiful blue line, and it's one of the highest pieces of ground on my hay meadow. The water does not run that way. You can look at the map and see how it meanders down through. So whoever drew those lines back in that time frame when they were doing that, it was a couple college kids out of Brookings. It was a summer project for them.
I appreciate that, but I really think that we get really mealy when we start second guessing those. I mean, we have to be grounded on
Correct.
something.
Yeah.
And we've chosen to ground our decisions based on that blue line unless we go through a process of modifying those. I mean, that's what we held Chad and Gerald to, and we've held all of our other applicants to. If we start to question, well, is it or isn't it, is it there, not there, does it go far enough, not far enough, then we just become mealy with everything.
Yeah. Well,
And
Rick-
anybody can question the validity of the blue line. You're right, I'm sure they're not perfect,
Yeah.
but we have to base something other than, then we do become self-interpreters of what we're implementing as far as an ordinance
Correct.
goes.
And back to the point is, that's why I was clarifying that he had easements all the way to the blue line. That's the reason I
Yeah,
went step by step to make sure we've done this before and he has the easements in place.
I guess I have one question. And it's in the ordinance, is the only reason I'm asking it. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, but it does say in there not once but twice that anytime drainage work performed without first obtaining a required permit shall be subject to an inspection fee of $500. Has this board done that in the past?
Yes. We have done it on the Schmidt property. That was a case of Steve Schmidt brothers or whatever, Willard, Steve and his brothers. They tiled one quarter. And when they had that outfit there, they went and tiled another 80 or
Jumped across the road.
jumped across the road. That's, it's down there by Ballin. Didn't even know about it till we had the floods and the water was pumping out and it was brought back to us. Never knew that it was tiled or nothing. And they did receive a fine. I don't know what it was, but that was without even telling planning and zoning, didn't get a permit or nothing. That's how how do you read that, Grant, now that we're talking
Well,
about
I think this one's a little different because the fact you did get an administrative
permit?
permit first. It was just confusion. I don't know how else you want to say it. So I'm not for finding him on it, since the fact there was talk about it ahead of time, there was just some gray area, whatever you wanna call it, in between. But if he did it knowingly without communicating whatsoever, I'd be all for it. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Dan. Anything else? So if I could summarize, Gary, if this is correct, what's in front of the Drainage Commission tonight is a request to modify a permit that was provided administratively to the applicant. This modification meets all of the ordinance requirements as far as connection to a blue line with easements, affidavits, notification, which administrative permits don't require notification. It's my understanding.
That is correct.
And so is there any further discussion amongst this commission, or we'll seek a motion to approve or deny, and we'll do that by roll. Any other discussion amongst the board? Or commission, I'm sorry.
So if it's administrative, they don't have to send notice? Now clarify. Is that what you just said?
Administrative permit doesn't require,
Is that correct?
That is my interpretation, yes.
So that.
And that's
answers-
one thing we may want to talk about when we
Okay,
do the
no,
ordinance
so that
discussion.
kind of almost answers the date Healy question now.
but our group one, or what is it, group one, group two permits, they, right? Is everybody with me here?
Yeah.
When they come in for an administrative permit, that comes in and Gary can administer that. It's either wholly contained or dumps into a direct blue line on that property.
Or a vested property.
You're right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll seek a motion. Is there a motion to approve or deny this permit?
I'll make a motion to approve this. JJLLC.
Okay, Craig Hansen makes a motion to approve the JHGAS Farms LLC modification of drainage permit request. Do I have a second?
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. Dan Grant. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll have a roll vote, please.
Grant,
Yes.
Krolichek,
Yes.
Hanson,
Aye.
Cruz,
Yes.
and Healy and Loest abstained.
Okay, thanks. We're then now at 8:15, and can the commissioners be reseated? So the Larry Lingstead application is requesting connection to the JHGAS Farms LLC project and a drainage permit to install drain tile in the southwest one quarter of section 10, township 95 north, range 55 west, hereinafter referred to as Walshtown Township, county of Yankton, state of South Dakota. Is there a project proponent here? Come up to the mic, state your name and give us the background on the project.
Okay, I'm Larry Lingstead, and I'm here to get a permit to drain my southeast quarter that comes across John's. And I putting the main in. And I actually did put the main in. When John was doing there, the contractor called, wanted to do my main over to my ground, being they're working his. And I said, I don't have my permit. This was on a Saturday. So I went down Monday morning to get my permits and get that done. And then that's when I found out I was denied. Other stuff happened. And actually at that time I had shoulder surgery and I didn't even know what was really going on until the contractor called me and says, can we do it? And I said, well, I haven't got my permit. I have to do it Monday morning. But I have all my other stuff was done. Everything was done. You just go down and get a permit from them.
Any questions for Larry?
Let's go.
Pardon?
No.
Is it possible to pull these up on the screen like we used to and take a look at this? Maybe I'm old school, or I know we get all the maps in.
Unfortunately, they're running files that I got deep in, so
Okay.
if you have hard copies.
Yeah, I'm here. I just gotta get it organized. Maybe we don't. I know we had the permit last time.
Cause I tiled before, that was back in 14.
This year, quarter?
Southeast.
Did I look right?
Thanks.
That might be
No.
wrong. Okay, which one's yours then?
I'm on
This,
the southeast. East of Jones, just way east of Jones.
oh, I might have others. Oh, there you go. There it
This
is.
is John.
Okay.
So you're gonna use the same outlet.
I had to put my own outlet across Jones. He wanted me to put my own in.
That way.
That's why I ended up doing it that way.
So
And-
this is his quarter, and this is John's outlet is here. And there's that dam.
Okay. So this quarter is draining where?
Where's your-
All drains
all
over
buried?
into John's,
Above ground?
in the dam area where he's got.
So it's outletting exactly where John's outlet is at.
Yeah, and I've got another one from my other same deal on it too.
So that's, you buried a pipe from your edge of your, all the way down to the.
Into his.
in his.
So yours is underneath what his is then?
So is that the only portion that's installed right now is on John's land?
Well, I got another one back in 14.
Oh, for this
Yeah.
project?
For this
For this
project.
project, it's
The
from,
project
from the dam.
Yep.
Where's your field? That'll be, this is north. You said south. So the dam's here. So
So it's,
It,
The
it,
dam.
it all comes from here, and it comes around, I,
basically,
Sean told them where to go when they came over here. and put
so
it.
basically you're coming here
Right,
and putting it on this opposite side.
you know, it's on this side, he put it
Oh.
on the other side.
Oh, it's both on the same
Yeah,
side.
they're both on the same side, and then it all comes over here into my dam.
Okay, and then it just stops at your
Yep,
field.
He went in ways with it,
Yeah, well, whatever.
but, so he plowed it in and then.
That,
where it
that
sits.
size of pipe he
That's all
thinks.
it's done, but I don't know if we're gonna do the second phase yet.
so the second phase will be on your quarter.
It's gonna be just on mine.
So my question is,
Is it draining anything right now?
does it need to be come back as a just one piece permit? Or do we need to see the whole permit with the whole second phase of the project for his benefit to put it all as one project?
When are you gonna finish this? Could
I
be
don't know.
4 years.
It's all depends on what the weather, everything's doing.
Yeah, when the contractor comes back and stuff.
It won't be this spring, I know that. It'll be probably, depends how the summer goes.
But you got your main in, which isn't.
But if I took the permit for everything and then it runs out, I can renew it, right?
No, once you start the project,
So this is already started.
Are you running water in that pipe right now?
No,
It's just an empty pipe.
yeah, it's pipe.
That's not the way we like to do things.
well, my question is do we permit just this one permit to go the main going across John's into his fields, and then he's gonna have to come back for the rest of the project? Because what size of pipe is this?
12.
12-inch.
I don't think we're in the business of permitting piecemeal projects.
Well, and when you don't know what that's gonna look like, it'd be different if you had a picture of it.
Right.
And say, well, we're not gonna
This
do
is-
this for 5 years.
But this is what the project looks like. This is the drainage area and this is
Right.
the pipe sizes and
I can see why you wanted to put a 12, when you put a 12-inch boot on a tile machine, guys there to do a 12-inch. That's a big project.
Yeah.
Not many people can do that. And then once he got the 12-inch in his field, he can add all the 6s or 8s with a tractor pulled tile machine.
Yeah.
But my issue here becomes, he did it. The rest of the project should be attached to it, but we have done permits where we've done some, came back and added. For example, if you want to grid something at 100 feet apart, you came back 4 years later and say, oh, 100 feet worked, but we wanted to now split it in half and do 50 foot. So we come back and add it to that project. So I guess in that sense, I'd say we're just permitting just the 12-inch line till we see the rest of the project, and it's gonna cost him to come back here again to do it.
why would that need a permit? I don't need a permit to bury a pipe on my property.
It's gonna
I was
say,
gonna
if it's
say,
not,
if I already
if it's
got
not
my
hooked in.
permit for the
then-
line and now it's on my own and the line's all there going to my own ground. I don't understand.
Once you put water in that, then you need to have a permit because that's running off your property. But right now, you and John have an agreement to have a nice piece of plastic pipe buried in his property.
Mhm.
It's not running water out into any receiving water body. And it's not part of a drainage system. It's a buried pipe. That's
Yeah,
my
that's-
take on it.
And that's,
It's a solid pipe.
Yeah, I'll throw up John's.
So
And I
it's a
wish it
solid-
was
so it's
running.
a solid pipe. It's not draining nothing.
That's not a drain project.
It's not. Yeah.
now, once you hook into it, you need a permit for that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it
Yeah.
easier to do the permit now and be done with it?
You gotta get your tile installed in a year and a half then,
Or started.
started in a year and a half, the rest of the project. But we have to see a picture of the rest of the project.
What,
and-
what I'm doing.
Yeah, we don't have an application right now.
Right.
I don't see anything what he even did in the past, but there's no drawing here of anything, Larry.
For what, the tiling?
Yeah,
No, I haven't gotten that far.
that's part
I
of
just
it.
put the main in. Being as they were there,
Do you have a
we
picture
put
of
the
that?
main in over there and then we,
Do you have a drawing of that?
Is
No.
it in John's?
of
Yeah,
what,
we
the,
don't-
the
yeah,
main?
We don't
Yeah.
have anything.
Showed
Well,
where the
we don't
main was.
have a project. We don't have a project to consider here in front of the commission.
Maybe I want to ask better.
Yeah, that was the question, because since it was after the fact and then all these questions were put to us about creating a meeting, we didn't really go much farther than that at that point. We just said, well, you have to go to a meeting to explain what's all going on. And so that's why he's here.
Okay, so last meeting when I was on the phone, we said he had to give notice to give for his project, but there is no project in here. So you didn't even put together the 12-inch tile line picture. So,
No, we just provided everything that Mr. Lingsted had provided us.
Because we went and got all the permits for everybody down in the township too.
So what we need to have here is a drawing of your project, fill out the application, as far as, Gary can walk you through that process. And, come back with a, estimated project design. So it's right now, we don't require permits for anybody laying pipe in the ground, anything like that. I don't see that you've done anything wrong until you flow water through that pipe and send it into a receiving body of water. You take water off your land and put it into a receiving body, that's drainage. Right now, you have an empty pipe.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know when all this was gonna happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And to be prepared for that, I would recommend that you go through the process. John knows it very well. Gary can help you with the process of actually putting a packet together that shows what you're going to stem off, put into that pipe, and when you anticipate, the outlet, and so on and so forth.
for
So,
example, I think Gridline did it. Have your contractor put something like the Eilers. I was gonna give him a copy of my Eiler one. When Gridline does a really nice job, but I know Corey does. You could draw it with pencil or whatever.
Well, that's what they normally do.
Yeah, so like this,
Just give
or
it
like
back.
you could have a copy of this, or a lot of people even use their FSA map and just draw lines and say this is how many feet approximately we're going after this little spot,
Yeah.
in this waterway,
Those
and
guys have got it.
yeah,
Tried it all. and-
yep,
well,
you
not
can
even
put your map out.
yeah. That way, and then you can come in and get the permit.
And then when we know what the actual land is that you're draining and you're adjoining people, then there's a determination made. It doesn't sound like it's an administrative permit because he's crossing John's
Like that.
Yeah,
ground
like
to get
this,
down
here's
there.
another example. A
Take
lot
that
of
one.
people
They
just
do
draw it
on
in.
The FSA.
That's
Yeah,
what
just-
I did on my other one, on that same.
Yeah, exactly, and then put it together. And then I guess if there's no water flowing through it,
It's not draining, it's not drain tile.
It's, I got,
I mean,
it's a blocked culvert or something. It's
Sorry.
just a pipe in the
it-
ground.
it's something he's gonna do. But
I
you
mean,
can't-
he took advantage of the contractor being there to get the tile plowed in the ground, but as long as he's not ever putting anything in there until he has a permit, he hasn't really done anything wrong, has he? I mean, this is not the same situation you're talking about with the Schmitz.
where they had the pumping
The water was pumping into the
Yeah,
receiving body water and
yeah.
it was, nobody knew where it was coming from.
and pipes were floating.
Yeah.
That's when it was notified, is when the table got so high and the tile pipe came out of the ground.
Right.
But this has no water going through it. It's capped. All right,
Even
if
if
it isn't
it's a
capped,
solid pipe.
it's a solid pipe. What's your
It-
take
it-
on
it-
this, Healy?
It's an outlet works without a project.
When you plan on capping it, I mean, what's the plan?
Well, I think he knows he's gotta come get a permit now to do the rest of the project.
But
Or-
no, all I need is come back with this,
Yeah.
because I got everything else done.
Well, when you come back, I make sure you have that 12-inch tile. You have the easement from John, you have the easement from yourself.
And the road.
And the road,
And
so-
the people downstream and upstream.
So all you gotta
I did
do,
all that.
yeah, so you're there.
You need to draw out your project.
So I'm saying, all I need is so that I can show the drawing.
Yep.
So was a permit issued, Gary? Did you issue? No bid has been issued.
No, we haven't taken any fees or anything yet.
Okay. And then, according to the meeting we had last time, you're supposed to update the easements with the township on account we got new
We did.
new outlets.
That's
right?
in there.
Updated ones? I didn't see the updated
No,
versions.
We got new ones just recently.
I seen the old ones. I didn't see any updated with,
It's a dual one, isn't it? John and
Yeah.
both of you are on the
Yeah,
on
same
the same
one.
one.
It's a dual one,
okay. all right.
and it was dated in January, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. Do we got
So Casey, I say the 720 is an incomplete project
yep,
and that it should go back to Better and Larry to bring the full project forward at whatever time Larry wants to.
yep. That's my take on it. Anybody else got anything?
No,
And we don't have a permit in progress, so we don't need to table this. There's no, motion needed for that. So we'll move on in the agenda. Thank you. So we will open the floor for public comment. The 725 agenda item, public comment, discussion on possible ordinance changes. I will open the mic for the public to speak. Is there anyone here to speak towards the discussion on possible ordinance changes? Hearing, seeing none? I ask the commission for direction on this agenda item.
so at the last meeting, we started discussing changes, amendments to the ordinance, and a big one is around kind of what we just went through, and that's administrative permits. And there's always been some question as to some of the definitions of blue lines and what's the difference between number one and number two. So number one is, we all think is pretty obvious. It says proposed drainage project, which outlets directly from the applicant's property into the legally recognized rivers and streams. Blue lines is defined herein and is delineated on the topo maps. And then the next one reads, a proposed drainage project which outlets directly into a permanent or intermittent stream. All intermittent stream, and is that all it, oh, no, not listed in number one above. So the question was always, well, is that, what's the difference between those? So I called Brian McGinnis, because he just got done rewriting, I think it was Douglas counties, and I went in and looked at how they did theirs, and the wording was extremely similar to ours, and he said the difference between those is the one that, when it says not listed in number one above, those are streams, to your discussion of what happens when the blue line map is wrong. And I've got a waterway that's obviously a waterway, but it's not on the blue line map. So that's what that refers to, is a proposed drainage project which outlets directly into a permanent or intermittent stream that's essentially not on the blue line map.
A permanent or intermittent stream.
Yes.
Excuse me for 1 second. Just to complete the previous action, I close the floor to public comment on this, having none here, and we'll move to discussion amongst.
Yep, sorry,
Commission.
I
No,
jumped in a little.
My bad.
A little. So I did make an effort to go in and maybe try to clarify some of that language, and I believe I had Gary send this out to everybody. And so the number one, I guess, is what I'm proposing to expand on that a little bit. And so it would read, a proposed drainage project which outlets directly from the applicant's property into the legally recognized rivers and streams, both permanent and intermittent blue lines. Because on the blue line map, there's some dashed lines too. So that would include any of those as defined herein and as delineated on the maps. The blue line must be on the applicant's property. So number one is essentially if you own land with a blue line stream, it's an administrative permit if you dump into that blue line stream. So number two, I'm proposing to say a proposed drainage project which outlets directly into the legally recognized rivers and streams, both permanent and intermittent blue lines, as defined herein and on the map, but crosses a roadway or abutting property in order to reach the blue line. All parties have received a copy of the drainage permit application materials as required in section 3.04, notification to other parties. A permit may be issued if no notified landowner files a written objection within 10 days after the mailing date stated on the affidavit of mailing. So essentially what that is, as long as you have all your easements and all the abutting landowners have been notified and they don't have a complaint and you're dumping directly into that blue line, it's an administrative permit that Gary can issue.
Okay, sure, Roy, we're right at that point talking about, notifications. Is this a good time to talk about notifications?
So we go back because
Okay. Okay.
oh, that's not a touch
I
screen.
don't
This one's
wanna-
not a touch
I
screen.
don't want to interrupt you, but.
Nope.
I know-
So that's 304. So
Okay, if we're gonna come to it, that's fine.
yep, so if we go back to what is a notification and how it reads right now is all property owners as detailed above, 1/2 mile above and 1 mile below the outlet of the proposed drainage or documented blue line. How I feel that should read is as detailed above, all abutting property owners and all property owners 1/2 mile above and 1 mile below the outlet of the proposed drainage project. Because what that does is it requires, you've got a quarter, everybody who abuts your quarter needs to be notified, and everybody affected by the actual drainage needs to be notified, 1/2 mile up, mile down.
Now, is that, and I agree with that. But is that where we talk about, I think the issue becomes now, I think the administration, the planning and zoning of the drainage upstairs, I think we need to change this. And I don't know if we do it first or if that they have to mail it off, if it's certified letter, because there's been questions prior to this one tonight, if people have gotten notifications.
Has it been a big issue? I'm not
You know,
aware that it has been, I guess, in my opinion.
You know, where it comes into play is when someone says, well, I didn't get my letter.
Yes.
And
We have heard that a number of times.
You
and
have here
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have, and
I guess
that
it's
was
never
why I
come up
brought that up.
during a committee meeting as being a issue.
You know, that's the reason I heard it. And I've known, I don't know if you're here, there was one other meeting, somebody else said they didn't get a notification, but they knew the project. And then it becomes a
Yeah.
problem that, we've had projects come back, like,
I think when the issue I recall was that he was just outside the 1/2 mile upstream limit, radius. The project was beside him, but the outlet was so far away from him that he didn't get notified.
If you're gonna make a change in that, you need to get rid of a good faith effort.
Let me read how okay, it says a good faith effort must be made by the applicant to notify all property owners of land with the following provisions. A list of landowners to be notified shall be determined by records of equalization. Planning department shall provide the applicant with notice of hearings. And this is where Gary's asking us to change that to essentially, it's a planning office's job to send those letters out to make sure they're out. And if we're going to do that for the planning commission, planning and zoning commission, we need to do it here too,
I
just to be
agree.
consistent. And then the thing about it is if you do the return receipts or whatever, we have those on file. And
And
then
that's
if
what-
it's refused, at least
Yep.
we know it, we tried. And that's the good faith effort, is the little piece of paper that said we tried.
And that's what I always did in the past and because I'd still even get people that would say, well, I never received that. And I'd say, well, here's your green card and so signed for it. So you may want to talk to them because you did get a copy of it.
And I think that cost should go back to the applicant. Cause I don't think the county should not be paying whatever it costs.
We always took it as that was part of the application fee. But you could certainly charge that back if we
What
so
does that
chose.
cost?
Yeah, what are we talking?
I mean, we charge $100 for the permit, so,
And that's maximum by state law.
yeah. So I mean, you know, if you have 10 owners at whatever, what is it, $5, $6, that's $50. You're still making $50 on the deal. So that was always the thought process, but we certainly could write it in that we send them and ask them to pay that amount.
Okay. So if we, shoot.
So to clarify though, the question today was, did they need to send out notifications on an administrative permit? So administrative permit type 1, no.
As it reads
As it
today,
reads today,
no,
no.
you're not required to. How I'm proposing is, you would have, because he was going under the road. So if you're going into the blue line, but it crosses a roadway or a budding property, you need to send notices out. It doesn't mean you have to have a hearing, only a hearing if someone complains.
Right.
So that kind of clarifies.
Yeah, that does help.
The
that.
difference between this is my chunk, and if I'm doing anything around me, then I need to send notices.
No, I think some of the issue was he wasn't actually going into the blue line on his property.
But he was going into a vested drainage right, as was
Well, do we-
interpreted
Do we
as
know that?
the right to do that. So, and then number 3 would read, a proposed drainage project which outlets directly into a permanent or intermittent stream, which is not listed on the topographical maps. So this would be where he comes in, well, there's a stream on my property, and we pull up the map, and say, that's not a blue line. That would be the one, not a blue line, or an intermittent or permanent. And then essentially, again, you're requiring them to send notices.
So you have a third category.
Yes. Yep.
I think it's really important that these things, I should speak to the mic. It's really important that we define what a legal, what maps we're using and what a legally defined intermittent stream or river is. Because there's a lot of different, well, even USGS has a couple of different mapping products out there that show rivers and streams. So which one are we as a county going to use?
Yep. So when you look at the definition, and this is interesting, intermittent stream, a natural drainage channel indicated by a solid blue line in the recently published USGS 7.5-minute quadrangle map.
That's in our definitions now.
When you read the permanent stream definition, it's exactly the same. So how I would change that is the intermittent, instead of it saying it's solid, it is a dot and dash. And the permanent is a solid. So we do need to make that clarification, even though we're technically going to treat them the same. But it does call out which map we're supposed to use.
Yep.
So in essence, with all 3 of those scenarios, unless someone complains or has a problem, there's no hearing. We don't see it.
So the Drainage Commission purpose really becomes one of issue resolution.
Well, let's go to the Drainage Commission, a proposed drainage project which does not outlet, and I want to add the word directly into a permanent or intermittent stream. So we've had instances where they're dumping into a ditch, they're dumping into the neighbor's pasture or something. Those would all come in
Okay.
because,
Or a dam like today.
yes, because that, yeah,
Because
that wasn't a stream.
that was not a stream, that was not vested, so that had to come back to us, because even though it was going into a dam, it was
Yes.
not a blue line yet.
And that was the clarification I read was unless you're dumping in that blue line, you need to come here.
Where's the vested part here? I'm missing it.
I
You know,
didn't,
that's not in here,
I don't
so,
see any vested.
yeah, you know, that's,
Here, that's going to blue line is what I'm reading.
but vested is already,
That's a state.
that's a state law.
That's a state thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the vested, he was re-modifying his, that's a good question.
There's no
so
vested
the
mention
word
of
vested,
here at all.
official maps in 314 is the word vested. The official map for recording all permitted and vested projects shall be the 7.5-minute topographical illustrations.
Where are you at?
That's in section 314. It's used 9 times. So let me see if I can go through and do the next one. A legal drain, a drain or drainage scheme that is vested under the provisions of South Dakota codified law is considered a legal drain. So if it's vested, it's a legal drain
Yep.
and you can drain into it.
Typically a vested drain is just something that's
So you-
man-made.
And then
That was the whole purpose of doing that.
routine maintenance, any maintenance performed on a vested and or properly registered drainage project. That's just in the definition. A vestige drainage right as a definition is a right to drain water from one property to another, which was established on the basis of South Dakota law. Any natural right acquired before July 1985 is deemed vested if recorded with the Register of Deeds.
And that's why I asked him whether he had it recorded at the county.
But it's still not saying that we're allowing that. Where are we saying that we allow that?
Well, that's supersede, I mean, that's a state investment.
We can't prevent them from using a vested drainage right.
Right.
We
Okay.
cannot do that.
That's prior to our commission. That'd be like all the tile.
Even if it's not, we can't be
Right.
more restrictive.
Well, I don't think we are preventing them from doing that. Are we?
I mean, the state gives them that right.
Right.
One of those is that, I think that actually was a tax district. Yeah, that's different.
Well, it would be no different than a natural waterway. Drain into a natural waterway. You know, so where do you differentiate that?
Well, a vestment is a legally, I mean, they had a,
Yeah, there was, it was typically was for man-made ditches.
right.
So that you told your neighbor, I got a ditch here.
And that gave them protection that everybody.
Protect, yeah. So that
Because
neighbor
everybody cleans it.
couldn't come back and say, hey, the water doesn't naturally drain here. This guy made an illegal ditch.
Yes. So
that-
somebody down the
that gave-
line wouldn't fill it back in.
So it gave you the right to vest that ditch, so that the neighbor could not come back, later and say, hey, it's an unnatural drainage ditch.
So are there other things we need to look at modifying in our current ordinance. So those are some of the ones we talked about last time, and so I did my first attempt at deciphering my notes and trying to put that in wording. So certainly the planning office is requesting to make that change about notifications, which I'm in support of. I do think that would be, and in fact, the applicant would probably be happy that you guys do it too. I don't think you're gonna get any applicants say, boy, I'd like to send out 50 letters.
It's a lot more efficient, the time, a lot faster.
And then you certify, we'll even have to have a certified notarization anymore because you're doing it.
Which we don't even have a notary at the office anymore, so right now, so.
Yeah,
so
we're
that's a good
working
thing
on it.
too.
I don't ever recall getting discussion around the Drainage Commission section of 1, 2, 3, and 4, which essentially, if in this section, both this commission and the Drainage Board, which is the county commission, have to hear it as well. So that gets into if it's not going into what's considered a permanent or intermittent stream, or outlets directly or indirectly into a public or private right-of-way, road ditch, or a proposed drainage project which outlets into a permanent or intermittent stream, which does not outlet into a permanent or intermittent stream, or which outlets directly or indirectly into a public or private road right-of-way, but has state and or inter-county significance. So that's a mouthful. I don't know if you guys have ever heard much on that. Not as long as I've been on the board have we ever dealt with something like that. And then number 4 would be a proposed drainage project which outlets potentially drain water from one watershed with the intent to discharge into a different watershed. And those are pretty major projects. So those are the 4.
We've done that one. The
Really?
last one.
Wow.
Draining, we did that up north. Can't think of it. Kirschman's are involved. We went from one watershed to the others.
That was Schaefer, wasn't it?
Schaefer's, there you go, Schaefer's. Where it first started, where the watersheds all kind of started. And he pumped over the hill.
Yeah, he went from one watershed to
And
another.
he went into
Really?
Mud Creek.
Mhm.
Ron?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one took us 3-4 meetings.
So those are the 4, and I only proposed the one word is to put the word directly in, because I think that's important to
That
distinguish
clarifies,
is where that tile outlet is. It's got to be directly, and if it's not directly, then that's a little bit different. Where's that 10%?
I think one other thing, I don't know, outlets. That we can adjust it. We're gonna try to be more specific where the outlets are always gonna be. Do we need to get more precise? Or our final max has to be precise or?
Yeah, where is that wording on the 10%?
Okay,
Yeah,
I just looked that up. So the actual outlet shall be placed within 10%. And in quotations, or in parentheses, it says actual location difference divided by total difference of project.
Okay, where you at, Sherry?
That would be, what page is that on? It's on page 16, which is 3.03. And it's item number 1.
Yeah, that was always a confusing issue.
4.03.
Well, I think it's section 3.03, but it's on 3.04's page.
Right on top.
What page? It's not
Yeah,
page
16.
16 then.
Oh, well, my page numbers must be different. It's 3, sorry. I must have a shorter document or something. So where's 3.03 and 3.04?
3.04, what's the
It's
notification?
right there.
Oh, okay,
Sorry about that.
thank you.
So which section?
Mine's in section 1.07
So it should be towards the top of the page.
on page 9.
Mine 3.04.
Yeah.
Okay, very top of the page. 10%.
Okay. Total, what's the total distance of the project?
Right, I mean, if you're tiling like a quarter, I mean, that's a half mile just on the bottom, so is it 10% of a
And then
half
is it the
mile?
length Is it this way?
You know,
or is
so
it
that's-
this way?
that could be
Linear distance or?
300 feet.
Proposed project,
Yeah, I don't know.
28,000 feet.
Yeah,
You
it
know-
could be 20, yeah, exactly.
So
I
I,
can put the outlet
You
anywhere.
can
there.
put it about anywhere you want it, yeah,
But, you know, that's what I was getting at.
yeah.
But I don't want to get it so tight that a person comes in that's tiling a custom crew or whatever, that they can't put it in the right spot, because those guys want to put it in the right spot that it doesn't erode
Mhm.
and cause harm down the road. They want to do it right. So
Should we put 50 feet, 100 feet, just put a distance on there?
so when I look at like the inset ceiling there, it's about 25 feet from that exit sign to this point up here, so 26 feet. So that gives you an
I'm
idea.
gonna say it's gotta be bigger than that, because because, for example, the Heine Krolichek project, when we came into that, he made a big loop out and then came back in, and he made sure it was in a spot where the tile was gonna be flush with the ditch.
Mhm.
And, when they come out and survey it, it could be 250 feet, because that ditch, he might have gone downstream further than what I said. I'm gonna use John Gunderson's example. So if his outlet was above that dam, so you got a dam, you got 4 or 5 acres you can drain into that thing. But when they come in as a tiling project, you don't know if they're gonna put it right up at the dam face or on the back side of the dam, off to the side, because you don't know what the weather is at the time, first of all,
Water
And what-
levels.
water levels. And the second thing is, I'm hoping everybody used the best judgment to put it in the right spot.
Well, typically the tile man has got this all
That's what I
figured
mean.
out before he even starts the project.
Well, they come and do it, like Gridline, they come do it on the
Yeah,
maps.
he's got
I go up there and do it on the map, but when he came to my place, he ran that 4-wheeler up and down the fields. And we did change a few things here and there because,
All I know is that it seems like in the years I've been on this, can't remember how many,
Yep.
not that long, outlets is the biggest issue.
yes, it is.
And if we can clean that up somehow to facilitate a little clearer understanding of what's expected and what's within just as you're speaking, within the bounds of reasonable modification within the permit scope, I think it would be helpful. I'm not sure what that looks like right now, but I'm just saying, I think this has been one of those, you raise it, Frank, I think because of the same
Yep.
reason. It's been one of those issues that seems to come back around more frequently than anything else.
And it's not, it kind of bites us in the butt once in a while.
Well, and it's the important feature of the
Yep.
drainage project. If you talk about what's going to cause issues
Right.
between neighbors or between receiving water bodies or, adding to flood risk in a system.
My thought is the 10% maybe should be kicked out. Do we need to put it in like 250 feet? I don't want to get so tight that we can't
Yeah, you can't-
adjust it, but I
Too
want
loose
to
and
not
too tight.
too tight, not too, but too far.
250 feet either direction, that's 500 feet.
Yeah,
That's a
it's-
heck of a,
I was gonna go like 100. Is it something that administrative
But then
could
do we,
modify without going to committee?
there's a good idea.
You know,
Because we know it's gonna go into the blue line. It's just a matter of where it's gonna end up. Is it gonna end up higher or lower? I'm just thinking different examples where it comes into.
when you say 100 feet or administrative approval.
On either side of the pipe, that gives them 200 feet.
Yeah. I guess.
So, yeah, so if we, I said
Of
200.
proposed discharge, 100 feet either side of the proposed discharge, in case they gotta
Mhm. Yeah,
put that proposed in there.
yeah.
But
So
then,
I guess I'm sorry.
because if you did 100 feet on either side, for example, John Gunderson's would have had to came back to us or had to get a permit or do we go back to administrative, say, hey, we got into this thing, this is what's gonna happen? Do we let the administrative take care of it or do we?
Well, that's my question. Is there a limit to what administrative approvals of this modification is?
In the
Or-
past, it has been a little bit limited, I think we could loosen that up some.
And what does the I mean,
What's
I
the
guess-
administrator?
Yeah.
Well,
Some of these get pretty dramatic.
they do, really do, you know, whenever you start getting into this willy-nilly stuff of without a more definite direction,
You don't like
that
gray
always
areas.
causes us problems.
Yeah,
I
anytime
mean,
there's gray areas, somebody can take
it does,
advantage of it.
and so, you know, it'd be nice if it was a specific distance, if possible, then it's pretty clear cut, but if we just say that it's left up to me, I may, just like tonight, everything we talked about was, well, I'm telling you what my interpretation of it is. Your interpretation may not be the same, but that's where the problem lies when you're just saying, well, let the administrator. It seems like just from history, I've been told that that's where this county has gotten into some issues of what administrator might have felt they could have did something and maybe they shouldn't have. I don't know.
Well, if it moved more than 100 feet, he'd still have to have all his easements,
Right.
still have to get to a blue line, and still have to meet all the same requirements. So
I mean, that
see
seems
as
pretty
an
reasonable.
administrative, you know, check.
That seems pretty reasonable.
That's
It's-
I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah,
If it does change more than 100 feet, he still has to meet all the requirements.
right.
So,
Now, how about notification? Would we require new notification?
It probably wouldn't change a whole lot, not enough to where it would
Yeah, you're right.
add an
Yes and
owner, I don't
not,
think.
Depends on how much it changes.
Yeah,
so going back to like John Gunderson, he changed that whole thing. So that had to come back to us.
yes.
Probably should have.
Yeah. But if he went from the bottom of the dam to the top of the dam, that's over 100 feet most dams.
Yeah. He went
So-
from
so,
one
you know what I'm
side
saying?
of the dam to the other side of the
Yeah, I'm
dam.
Yeah, so
guessing
that's
that was
okay. That
probably
could be a couple-
300 feet probably.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
change at 300 feet. That's why I was kind of saying.
Water still goes the same place.
The water's
Still
going-
has the same
But all
easements.
that would require then is for them to come in and get, yep, that's fine. Administrative. just
Yeah,
say,
That's what I'm
saying.
thinking.
Yeah.
Check on it, not just because, yeah, this one, in that case, this one could be 300 feet from one
Yeah.
side of the dam to the other, but all he needs is Gary to say, yep, I concur, boom, gone, go
Yeah,
do it.
right.
So I think we need to have it in the writing, if he's not changing the direction of the water, but changes the outlet to whatever the direction is, just gotta have the
Greater
administrator.
than 100 feet either direction, then you come in for an administrative
Yeah.
concurrence.
Yeah, yeah.
That seems pretty reasonable.
Is that, okay?
Okay.
Did you get that all, Shay?
Think so.
Because that's where I get at, is you go on one side of the dam to the opposite side of the dam, because that could change a lot.
Or these guys that are wanting to dump into a road ditch or something and they decide to go to the other side of the road where instead of running to the east and dropping through, now it goes west and drops through, and those things need to come back.
Probably, I guess, yeah, I don't know, there again be a situation where if the township doesn't have any problem with it, we probably wouldn't have any
Yeah.
problem with it. There again, as long as proper easements are in place,
That's,
you know what I mean?
that is
As long
key.
as everybody's downstream is aware of it, and all
Yep.
proper easements are in place.
So I have a question on the next sentence of that same paragraph. It goes on to say, all required maintenance agreement and/or easement shall be required. shall be provided. So do you have to do one or the other or both? Because it says and or, so you have to either show your easements or you could say, I have a maintenance agreement with this person.
Usually it requires an easement.
That's not what it's saying. though.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Usually
where you at?
requires an easement. I'm just trying to walk my head through this. Usually it requires an
Same
easement, but
paragraph,
there
Same
are,
house.
Next line.
there are times when the township or somebody else will, want them to commit to, if this thing erodes our road, or if this thing does, you're responsible for the maintenance.
So it should be changed then to
All
say,
required maintenance.
if required, have the maintenance, but we definitely have to have an easement. if required.
But usually the township will say both.
Usually that's in the easement, yeah.
But that's not what this is stating. This is saying and or.
Yeah.
So it's given an option for somebody to be nitpicky with I could fight you on it, that's what I'm saying. if I
Yeah.
wanted to play devil's advocate.
So could it say all required easements and maintenance agreements, and in parentheses, if applicable, shall be provided?
That'll work.
That'll work.
Perfect.
Okay.
The only other thing, I guess, as I read through a lot of this, that I didn't understand why there's two, you have a drainage inspection fee and then you have inspection fees, which pretty much say the same thing. So I don't understand why I have two sections for inspection fees. Section 316 and then section 407.
Well, section 316 is like permitting after the fact. You put it in there, it's probably or it likely would be a permitted project if you would have come in and gotten a permit for it to do it, but you didn't, you did it, now you're coming for an after the fact permit.
Mhm.
You could be levied a $500 inspection fee for that. The 406 is that project wouldn't be approved. And you need to restore the landform prior to you putting the project in.
407.
I'm sorry, 407. That would be like, no, you wouldn't have gotten a permit for this. You did it anyways. Now you got to go in and take it out.
Or somebody will have to.
Yeah.
Well, it's like tonight, is that guy hooked up or not?
Yeah.
Well, we're after 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to stay here all night and do this, but I assume we're gonna have a meeting in, what is this month, February, March? I forgot my month. So by that meeting, again, bring, and one thing I will leave you with thinking about. We struggle with the general overall scope of drainage authority. And again, tile drainage, big surface drainage, or drainage between two homeowners that live side by side and one's dumping their sump pump on the other. And when I have been reading other drainage ordinances in other counties, they don't differentiate that. Theirs reads very similar to ours, about the only thing is ours say these regulations shall be, cover essentially Yankton County. Many drainage ordinance will say cover the area outside municipalities in Yankton County. So that's really the only difference I've come across so far. I was really hoping to find someone who'd solved the problem already. Or maybe it's not a problem, but give that some thought. If this needs to be narrowed in focus to specific ag property, if you will.
That was the intention, was just big agricultural property.
The challenge
That was the
is,
intention.
that's the
Now, I
intention.
don't know
That's
where
not
it-
what this says,
Right,
is
right.
you can read this very liberally
Mhm.
and
So I have a question concerning that, Sherry. Is there a recourse in the county for those experiencing drainage conflict within the municipalities or within neighbor to neighbor versus just agriculture? And I'm not asking that we should be that. I'm just saying, is there a recourse for that?
And so far, the county commission has chosen not to get involved.
Yeah, wouldn't it
And
be more the city or the municipality?
Well, we've got 4,000 people who
Jurisdiction.
live out here, and
Right,
if there's a complaint
where
in
it
the city,
gets-
the city handles it.
yeah.
But it's outside the
It's
municipality.
Your housing development.
When you get more concentrated and they're starting to live on hills,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden the water up here is draining down the hill and things, so.
Now, when they get a building permit, isn't that part of the building permit though, that proper drainage be?
No, it's more at the plating stage. That's generally when they do their grading and drainage plans and things.
So I was thinking when I got a
But the
building
issue that
permit,
we've had more and more lately is neighbors. We've had a project that's coming in for a CUP or to do a campground, say, and people start questioning all the drainage issues out on the west side, and they want the county to step in the middle of it and say, well, you can't do this project because all the drainage issues out there. But in reality, even when, like, we had Spady that just came through and they had an engineering study done, and that was literally about the only thing we said about it, is that, well, go out and have a grading and drainage study done, show us where the water's going, and that's about the extent that we took it. But you know, those things cost money, and so there's a lot of people that don't like the idea of having to do an extra engineering study just to try and get their projects through.
Well, I know when I built the shed, I had to draw a map, of course, where the shed was at, and then where the drainage was. gonna
Right.
Go off of that shed, so.
Yeah, if it's
you
in
know,
the
that's part of the
floodplain,
building
we do
permit.
those kind of things more so when then they'd have to get into showing us an elevation certificate that it's a foot above the base flood elevation and things. But on a normal property where there's no floodplain and things, we generally don't get into the drainage aspect of it.
Okay. Well, based on that request, folks, bring your comments, another month to review that and get them. Are you compiling and serving as our
Yeah, that's fine.
collection of edits?
February, March. I would guess we're gonna see more permits here in the next couple of months too, I would think. Once it warms up and get into spring.
Usually March, yes,
Yeah.
things start picking up again, March, April, depending on how much more snow we get, I guess.
So, yeah, take an effort to take a look at this. Here's our chance to provide, our comments to the ordinance if we can. So with that, I think we've completed our agenda for the night. I would seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.